For the longest, I have no idea how to start these damn things.
Well, I think you did a great job right there. I think that's perfect.
Dude, honestly, well, it's funny. I was talking to, I don't know the damn guy. I was watching Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he always does like cold opens and goes, yeah, man, so we got this guy over here, and we're talking about this and that. Oh, and by the way, here it is. And he has a little intro, and then he just goes in, and he's like, all right, Ric Flair, so how much drugs did you do back in the day? And you're like, all right.
Hey, man. Hopefully you don't have to ask me any questions like that.
No, don't worry. This is all strictly music related and all that. So, hey, everybody, this is MudFlap from MudFlap Outdoors with a Broken Down podcast. Again, I never know how to start these kind of things, and we are here with my good friend Jake Carroll. He's the one that started the Broken Down sessions years and years ago, and if you have watched those on YouTube, as you can tell... He has shorter hair. Yep. He didn't come in with a Jim Beam fire, bottle and all that. But, Jake, first off, we had a great time with you back there on that dirt road with all the music. I can't wait for everyone to listen to all that. Yes, sir. Jake, how you been, man?
Oh, I've been great. I'm happy to be here. I just want to go ahead and say, man, I appreciate y'all having me, dude. And he says, I started it. Cody Baker has everything to do with the Broken Down sessions. I was just lucky enough to be a part of it. But no, I've a lot has changed since that first session we did. I'm recently engaged. I'll be getting married here in September. I cut my hair, started working again. Learning a lot. I started building again, which is great. Working for a good company, and I'm just trying to walk that line these days.
Dude, I mean, growing up and getting old. I mean, it's funny like. You're starting to grow up, and I'm just getting old at this point. I don't know. That's how I see it. But Jake, man, look, first off, let's just talk about, kind of our passion and kind of what started the Broken Down sessions, right. And that's music. Kind of who got you into music, how did you get into music, and kind of tell the backstory behind that.
So, getting into music, I was probably about 9-10 years old. I really wasn't a very good kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I never got into too much trouble, but it was just enough trouble that, your parents would take your phone, they'd take your TV, they'd, and I was on this stretch. I was going to be grounded for a month. And I remember telling my parents about a weekend, listen, y'all got to give me something to do. I was like, I'm going to go crazy sitting in this room by myself. And so Daddy went out and he got me this little beginner guitar and he handed it to me and he said, do something, do something cool. And luckily, I was already, me and John Boy Story had been hooked up for a while. We'd already been hanging out and everything. And he was about a year ahead of me. He had already been into it. And so we went to the same church. And I remember asking him, I was like, man, could you show me a couple chords? And he would, we'd sit in that youth room and he would show me, 3 chords. And he's like, these are the chords for Sweet Home Alabama. I'll see you next week. And, and that next week I'd come in and I'd be picking Sweet Home Alabama. And he'd go, well, man, you sound pretty good there. Well, here's this song, why don't you try this one? And then from that it really just grew. And I finally got to a point where I was more or less, because I've always played off of ear. And so I would just listen to songs over and over and over again until eventually I could play them, you know? And but that was how I got into it, was just from being a crappy kid,
right? No, it's funny, music, bonds everyone and it brings everyone together. I mean, obviously that's why you go to concerts and everything, and it's interesting, obviously we talked a little bit earlier about how music means a little bit different to us, because I picked up the guitar a little bit, thanks to my, Papa. He gave me, a guitar and a couple more and all that, and I started playing because of that. But it's different because it's a way for you to express yourself and express kind of what you're feeling, or even if you don't know the song, you just listen to it and, because before, I would listen to, AC/DC and all that kind of stuff and be like, okay, hey, this, this music's kind of cool. But now I started listening to the deep tracks of a Cody Jinks, of Jamie Johnson. And then you kind of go, okay, now this is starting to kind of make sense. I'm guessing that's kind of similar to you.
Yeah, it is. It's always been tough for me to relay feelings and emotions, through words. As you said, we were talking about it earlier, it's always just been, and you know, God bless them, but you know the chicks dig music. They always have, you know, and so and it's always that part of it being that it was so tough for me to, you know, express like what's the best way to express somebody that you love them. Well, if you write them a song, that's gonna mean something. You know, they can always have that. And that's where, you know, my old lady these days, she's always like, I just need more songs. You know, you don't write about me enough, you know?
Well, it's funny you say that. I was listening to or watching, because Tyler Childers did he did something with Apple Music, and he was talking about like how his wife, I forgot her name, but
Sonoya May.
Sonoya May. Well, thank the Lord, you know her name, and I don't.
Yes.
It's probably why I'm single. So there's that. So, but it's interesting. He sat there and said, "Hey, you know, back in the day, you know, I used to be able to write a song and I could get away with it, you know, anything. Yeah. You know, now I have to do a little bit more."
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more background checks there.
Oh, geez, I understand that. So, you know, like, obviously, you know, the Broken Down sessions, they'll come out at a later date, but I really want to talk to you about the song that you wrote about your grandfather. You know, kind of tell the backstory and how that, you know, kind of came about.
Well, so my granddad was he's still alive, luckily, but he's been going through some stuff and a little bit of health issues, and he used to always say this statement growing up, and it was like, "You're my horse if you never win a race," and I never really knew what it meant whenever I was young, you know, because you're my horse if you never, that doesn't matter, you know. I never went to a horse track. I was never into gambling or anything like that. I didn't understand it, and you know, I kind of got to, whenever these health issues came in, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, he's betting on me, you know, and so that's always meant something to me, and so whenever I sat down and I actually wrote the song in one afternoon, because I was at work and I had tried the idea, you know, a couple weeks before, and it didn't quite. I didn't like where the direction it was headed, so I just kind of sat it down and said I'll come back to it. And I was at work, and me and my foreman weren't getting along that day, and so we weren't talking too much. You know, there wasn't a whole lot to say, so I was just wrapped up in my own head, you know, just working and building. And I kind of had the rhythm and the melody come to me, and it was just like a song I'd never written. It was more of a folky, like picking song, and you know, that's not usually my style. But I went home and I told the old lady, I said, I'm gonna be locked up in this room for a couple hours. Like I'll let you know when I'm out, when I'm done. And by the time I came out, I had "You're My Horse" written, and it was good to go. And so I did a rough tape of it, and I sent it to him, and he loved it, and I knew that was the ticket. I knew I was good to go then.
It's very interesting that, like, those kind of thoughts and ideas come at the most inopportune time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, everyone jokes about, like, hey, I get a thought, like, when I'm in the shower, and that's exactly when I do. Like, half the time when I'm working on, like, a video project or anything, like if it's a music video for John Boy or any other freelance gig, and I'm stuck on something, I go, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm sitting there, I'm, you know, in the shower.
Take your shower, that's right.
And then after that, I go, oh my God, I know exactly what I need to do. And then I'm sitting out there running out. And I'm like, forget the towel. I got to figure, I need a piece of paper. I need to figure out how I'm going to write this down and kind of explain it. So, you know, and that it's, the creative process is very interesting. So, you know, whenever you write a song, obviously you kind of, you know, pinpointed that, but generally, how do you kind of write a song?
Well, and there's a lot of different avenues to take with songwriting. You know, sometimes you start with the lyrics. There's been songs that I've written, like That Dog Will Hunt actually started with the chords. Once we got the chords together, then we were like, okay, we know what we can write, what's the melody we can use. But I mean, it all comes with a lot of help. There's some great songwriters out there that can just be themselves, and they can sit in a room and write a great song by themselves. But with me, sometimes it needs some help, you know, and I got people like Abby Perper and Blaine Rudd. You know, if we link up and we both have to have those two minds in the same room, those two great minds, you know, and for me, I start with lyrics a lot, though. It'll start with, I'll get some lyrics in my head, or I'll get a line in my head, and then I'll go from that to, okay, well, now what melody will that sound, you know, decent with? What melody could I use that you know, doesn't sound like everything else that you've heard? And that's a tough spot, because I'll get halfway through a song that I'm writing, and I'll be like, oh man, that sounds like this. And then it's
Right.
tough to keep going because, but that's music. I mean, there's no new chords coming out. You know what I mean? Like, the people have figured it out by now,
No, 100%. Like, there's certain songs that I've started learning to play, and like I get on Chordify, and I go, all right, if I just put the capo on, 4, I can play this song, and it's basically, like be A minor,
Yep.
C, F, G, it does that kind of chord progression. Or if I go to, capo on 2, it's like G, C, D,
Yeah.
E minor, like whatever the case may be. So,
Yep.
it is hard, but I think a good song, and, obviously whenever we were breaking in the middle of everything, we listened to VCR Kid by Oliver Anthony, and we were
Yeah.
talking about, kind of the idea and what sparked the Broken Down sessions. And, that one is just a guitar. It's just lyrics. Like,
Yep.
you listen to it and you go, okay, like that's pretty good. And I joke and say, a good song is basically 3 chords and the truth.
That's
and
right.
And the kind of music that I like nowadays, especially coming out from, like a Riley Green, a John Party, or anything like that, if it's more mainstream, I want to hear acoustic. I want to hear
The Broken Down session.
I want to hear the Broken Down sessions.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and it's a good song, even if it does sound similar to another song, it's still a good song. I mean, there's nothing there. You can't take anything away from it, and that's always been big to me. And it's taken a long time to learn it, because in the past, if it started sounding like something else, I just stop. And I'd be like, well, if I can't get it to go a different direction, I don't want to come out with another song that sounds exactly like what I just listened to.
Right.
And but it's really, your lyrics are more powerful than your melody, in my opinion. Like, your melody is what's going to keep a listener listening, and that's what makes people remember the song and what's catchy about it. But if you're saying something that means something to you, that means more than what it sounds like,
No, 100%. And it's interesting because actually yesterday, me and Daddy, we were out here, and he asked me if I watched the Lainey Wilson documentary off of Hulu.
Yeah.
And I haven't yet, and I'm honestly, whenever I get home, I'll probably end up watching it.
I need to too, yeah.
And he was telling a story. I'm going to butcher it, but basically part of it, Lainey was talking about, how she got with the right producer and, trying to, be a better songwriter.
Yeah.
And the producer was like, hey, just pick up anything, like whatever topic you want to talk about, like whatever it is. She was like, a blue truck. He was like, okay, what does the blue truck sound like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does it see and everything? And then she kind of took that and kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
And kind of, let's face it, it's kind of worked out for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's one of my favorite Lainey Wilson stories, and I'm really in awe of her, who she is as a person. She just, you can tell it good people, and it's sometimes, and even like Jelly Roll, I'm a huge Jelly Roll fan, just because of who he is.
Right.
Like he walks it and he talks it, But Lainey Wilson, one of my favorite stories of her was, I think it was last year she won New Artist of the Year at the CMAs. And she was talking about, she'd been in Nashville for 10, 11, 12 years and zero recognition, nobody looked twice, And then she blows up, and now this is the New Artist of the Year, and she's like, I've been here. You know what I mean? I've been here for this long, And
it's crazy because, again, like someone like a Stapleton, Stapleton, I'm a big Stapleton guy. I'm a big fan of him. But, he was always doing stuff with the Johnson brothers.
Yep.
The Steel Drivers,
Yep.
His own stuff, songwriting. Wrote a big hits like, Drink a Beer that Luke Bryan wrote out and all that. And it wasn't until that, that award show with Justin Timberlake that really just skyrocketed him.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
To my knowledge, that's what it was. And after that, it just, he's gone. And now, like, dude, he could sing Happy Birthday and I'd probably cry.
Oh, yeah.
I probably would. Like, dude, I know we joke and everyone jokes about it, but whenever he sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl and everyone's crying, I was like, yeah, there's no way you could top that.
I've always said, man, Stapleton, they say, some people sing with soul. Man, Stapleton's singing with a couple souls. You know what I mean? I don't know who he took them from, but he's got a few of them in there.
Like, to me, who hurt Stapleton?
Hey,
That's
man,
what I'm saying.
I think it was the industry.
I mean, it probably was, and he probably said, "Look, I'm gonna make my money, and we're gonna roll with it." But I mean, like music is interesting, and that's the thing, and that's why I picked up the guitar and just played 2 chords was because of my papa, because I knew he played it, and I'll tell the quick story. I told it off camera, but he gave his grandkids and his kids, guitars, and obviously, at the time I was just going to put it up and let it ride.
Yeah.
But COVID happened, and I don't know what possessed me to do it.
Boredom.
But it was exactly boredom. I watched like Love Island on Netflix.
Yeah.
I watched like.
Said it's time to make a change.
Yeah, I was getting close to watching The Bachelor, and I was like, all right, we got to figure something else out. Yeah. And so I picked it up, went on YouTube, figured out the 2 chords, sent it to him, and got more guitars and all that. But it's seeing him smile and seeing him, see that. Mm-hmm. His love for music is being handed down to the next generation of his grandkid and all that. That's why I keep playing. I can't sing. I know that for a fact. I'm not the greatest player. I know that for the fact. But, if it made him smile, I don't care what anyone else thought.
No, I completely understand, man. And music's one of those things that that'll never die. There's always going to be those recordings. There's always going to be a vinyl out there somewhere, mm-hmm. Of some great music. And there's been, let's see, where were we at? I'm trying to think of where we were at on the conversation. Talking about Stapleton.
Yeah, so we were talking about Stapleton, Lainey Wilson, and kind of, songwriting in that sense. And then, like Papa got, and it was interesting because Papa started with gospel.
Yeah.
He started with gospel. And, and again, it's interesting because you and John Boy kind of started in church.
That was exactly where it was.
And then you kind of kept going and going and going. And it's interesting how, everyone started at a certain point, and that's, whenever I sang and played, at Papa's funeral, mm-hmm. The 2 songs I played, because he was a big Merle Haggard fan. Yeah. The Way I Am by Merle Haggard.
Good song. Great song.
And then I ended up playing and kind of singing, kind of getting everyone going as a choir, I'll Fly Away. And then, to me, I was like, that's the most fitting things. Yep. It's Merle Haggard and it's gospel music.
Yep. Hank Williams Sr. You can't beat that.
Dude, see, and that was the thing. I almost did I Saw the Light, because I remember, oh man, I was young, and I don't remember how old I was, but I remember me and him doing karaoke to I Saw the Light.
Yeah.
And I almost did it. I mean, it's easy. You can go G, C, D, and all that.
I'll Fly Away is Hank Sr. too.
Yeah.
That was originally Hank Sr.
Really?
He wrote that. Yeah.
Interesting.
For my, I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past, but I'm like 90% sure. Yeah, Senior wrote that.
I'll believe you on that.
Yeah, but what I was gonna bring up, what I was trying to find, was boredom. We were talking about boredom, and a lot of people will come up to folks to play the guitar, and they'll be like, "Man, I want you to teach me to play." Mm-hmm. And how I gave my story of how I got into it, I didn't have nothing else to do. Mm-hmm. You didn't have nothing else to do. It was COVID. Mm-hmm. You got to get bored enough to want to learn the guitar. Because if you got something else to do, why not do that? You know what I mean? Why torture yourself and sit there and kill your fingers? You know what I mean? And you got to really want it if you're wanting to get into music. And but I'd say it is. I think music is one of the most rewarding and non-rewarding things you could ever do.
Dude, it really is. And it's so the way it is, because the way I've kind of learned to play was I'd put on a movie and I'd sit there and I'd just start strumming and watching the movie. And I don't know why. I mean, everyone else would be like, "Oh, I'm overstimulated." I'm like, "Loud stuff, give it here."
Yeah, man.
I mean, Jordan Hare Stadium, Duty Noble, Mississippi State's football stadium with all the cowbells, I'm probably going to lose my hearing at an early age. I'm pretty positive of that.
That's what these headphones are for these days.
Yes, dude, at this point, I'm so glad you decided to wear them. I was like, oh, thank heavens, I can wear this. I can hear you, because if you would have taught, I'd be like, squirrel.
What?
Exactly. But it's, and it is boredom, because you have to sit there and just keep playing and keep playing. Because, wherever I sit there and put my mind to it and say, hey, I want to play this song, I get frustrated and all that. Well, if you don't think about it, you just keep going and you just do it, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and there's a lot of that frustration, you know, because once you finally, nobody ever really truly masters the guitar, you know.
Right.
There's always something else you could learn, but you know, once you finally get to a point where if you want to start playing live, if you want to start making money off of it, you know, and there's going to be so many times where all you need is a yes. You know, all that's just all you're looking for is that yes, and all you ever get is a no. You know, and that's just where it'll knock you down, and that's what, you know, will gain somebody. It'll either make you or break you. You know, I mean, you'll take something from it and build better and come back next year and do another battle of the bands and see if you'll, you know, come in a better spot, or you know, some folks just pack it up and go home. And you know, fortunately, I've accomplished everything I wanted to so far. I've been luckily, the good Lord is the only one I can thank, you know, because there's been so many times where an opportunity will come towards me, and I'll kind of look around and be like, how the hell did y'all land on me? like where there's a million other artists, you know, I could think of that deserve it more and that are probably better, you know, from outside looking in, and you know, but we've been really, really fortunate. I think we're all very spoiled in our town that we live in, because it is just a little no-name town in southeast Alabama, but there's so much talent here. I mean, there's so much talent, and you get to, whenever you get to work with people that are on that same level, everybody's constantly gaining from each other, because it's like, man, you played a chord like that. I've never heard that lick. How'd you do that? You know, and then John Boy will be like, oh man, it's your, you know, and I'm like, oh dude, I could do that. Hold on, that's great, you know.
Yeah.
But it's being in such because I mean, I could rattle off, you know, 7-8 artists off the top of my head that are just here, you know, that all could be on the radio, that all could go and do amazing things, and it's like, where's it going?
No,
you know?
It's funny, because yesterday while we were building this fence at my parents' house, we were me and Daddy, we were talking about, like, look, sometimes it's just a re-release of a song, and this kind of goes into a next question that I have. Is, you know, nowadays you're starting to see double albums. You're starting to see a lot of people going the single route. You're starting to see people do LPs, EPs, whatever the case may be. In your opinion, because I have my opinion, in your opinion, what is the best way of kind of getting out there and getting that exposure in terms of music and the release and the marketing of it?
Yeah. Well, that question has a few layers, because money has everything to do with what route you take. I mean, if you got somebody that's paying for anything you do, hell, as much stuff as you can push it, you know. Sit on 5 or 6, but everything else, throw it out there, you know. But for independent artists like myself, or like, you know, and one of the biggest independent artists in Alabama is Muscadine Bloodline. Right. They are fully funded, they're self-funded, you know, and they're doing great, which is kind of unheard of in this industry. It's tough without those big name, big machine labels to push your stuff, because I mean, like, in my instance, you know, I come out with an EP a year ago, and it was a 5-song EP, and you know, and I would have loved to put out more music. 5 songs was all I could afford. I mean, I didn't have any more, you know. So I dumped it all into those 5 songs, and by God, I was just like, well, we're gonna see what it does, you know. And I think a double album, if you are a mainstream artist, man, because Morgan Wallen really put that double album, like, man, if you're not doing a double album, what are you doing? Because now Cody Johnson's doing them, you know. Exactly. I mean, you got a bunch of artists that are doing this now. I think it's great if you have the songwriters and the ability and the money, but I mean, you can't go wrong for a first-time artist that's just trying to dip their toes in the water. An EP works great. I mean, because you can pick your best 5 or 6, put them out there, get them cut, and get them professionally produced, you know, and then see where it goes. I mean, that's really all you can do. I mean, because the more money you put into it, though, the more you're going to get out of it. That's just a fact.
No, it's interesting, because I've seen. And I'll just use Riley Green as an example. His latest EP, if I'm not mistaken,
Jesus Saves.
It was interesting because he had Atlantic City on there, which is an old cut that he did or cover that
the
he
original.
did.
Yeah.
You know, years and years ago, I believe, before he even signed with someone, or he just signed.
No, that's what it was.
So he re-recorded that, did that. So that's a song there, and it was what, 8-song EP right around there.
Something, yeah.
And so, you know, he ended up putting his latest single, which was "Damn Good Day to Leave," which was on his last album. So it's to me it's how you market it. You know, it's
absolutely.
You know, it's you can come out with an EP and it's 5 songs. Guess what? 3 of those songs are going to be in the next album.
Yeah.
And then you have this, and this, and you have another single here. It is exactly how you say, at least in my 2 cents. It's all about the money aspect. I mean, if you have all the money in the world, why not do a couple singles, do an album, do an EP, do another album, do this, do that, do the double album, save 40 songs, and there you go. Boom, here you go.
Yeah, 40 songs, that's a lot of music, man.
That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time. Yeah, you can't be working no day job trying to write up 40 songs. It's impossible.
Yeah, I don't know how Morgan Wallen does it. I mean, he does throw a chair every now and then, but that's beside the point.
Hey, sometimes you got to let loose, you know.
Yeah, so, you know, I want to kind of wrap this up because I know you got to get going here soon, but what's next for Jake Carroll?
Well, to be honest with you, so we did the Columbus concert series. We did the concert series it's probably been a couple weeks ago now, but that was the first time that I got the band back together and got all my players, because, you know, running a 6-piece band ain't easy, you know. I gotta have everybody on the same page, and but we finally got everybody back together, and so now I've started booking, you know, full band stuff now that I got the guys again, you know, and so we're doing a lot with Fort Moore.
Okay.
So they're opening up a bar in Fort Moore, and I've always had a lot of respect for the soldiers and what they do for us, you know. And so they're opening up a bar called Lucy's Roadhouse, and so I got 3 or 4 dates with them just because I support what they're doing, and you know, I'm doing all I can for them. But so that'll be we're starting to book again. You know, work. I've been working like a dog during the week, but buildings don't stop building. But We're having fun, and we're starting to pick up some more steam with the music.
Perfect, man. Dude, first off, I mean, I've said it off camera, and I'll say it here, and I'll keep saying it even until wherever you're heading out to your Jeep, I'll sit there and bug you and say, hey, dude, I appreciate you coming out here and doing this.
Happy to be here.
And doing everything, you know. I mean, I know you're giving me my flowers, but you were the one that started the Broken Down sessions and all that. And so I appreciate you being out here and doing a couple songs and doing this podcast and a couple other things. If there's anything I can ever do to help you, you just let me know, man.
Absolutely. No, anytime. Anytime you need anything, man, you just want me to sit in the background and play you some music in the room, man. You just let me know. I'm there.
All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake Carroll. I'm MudFlap. We'll see you next time. Keep on keeping on, everybody.